Hey, folks. Well, more disturbing activity taking place here in the shores of the United States where criminally negligent mayors and governors around this country have undermined law enforcement and have created a socially fractious situation in our major metropolitan cities across the country. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the vile, unprovoked, disgusting, obviously racially motivated attack against famed Hollywood actor Rick Moranis, a famed comedic talent who's been in our television screens and our movie theaters for decades, famous for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Ghostbusters, and many other performances in the past. He's been missing from the public scene for a number of years now after the passing of his wife, and he was raising his children on his own. But walking the Upper West Side of New York yesterday on Thursday, the 1st of October, he's walking along when this vile thug just sucker punches him, knocks him to the ground, and walks off. Now, we've seen this racial hatred for years in New York City, especially. For years, ladies and gentlemen, famously during the Barack Obama administration, elderly Jews were being assaulted with black culprits walking up behind, thunking them in the back of the head, knocking them to the ground. And we've seen endless videos of people in New York City, but not just in New York City, around this country, particularly elderly white victims being assaulted by young black men. Now, I'm so sick of hearing the nonsense about, oh, people are racist when they look the other way when they see black men in the streets. Well, what do you expect people in New York to do when they're walking along the street and endlessly being assaulted by people? What's that all about? Now, before anybody turns this into utter nonsense, let's just cover the facts here. A black man commits a felony assault against a white man walking down the street. The only reason this is being talked about by the mainstream media is because it's a famous Hollywood celebrity, Rick Moranis. They didn't give much of a flip about elderly Jews being assaulted endlessly, or the other attacks we see all the time. Young mothers being beaten in public parks. This needs to stop. This needs to stop. We hear this endless drivel and lying about the state of relations in this country and about supposed institutional racism. Yet actual assaults, actual attacks are ignored by and large by the press. It's vile and it undermines racial relations in this country. It needs to stop. There are mayors and governors who are intentionally stoking racial hatred by playing this ridiculous game which is causing damage to the civil society. Black folks are not violent by nature. White folks are not violent by nature. But being egged on by people whose demented obsession with removing Donald Trump from office leads them to undermine the rule of law and undermine public safety throughout our cities around the country by claiming to defund the police, charging the police with crimes capriciously when they're in self-defense and firing justification, and creating a narrative of police and law enforcement hunting black men. The police are not hunting black men in this country. That's fiction. That's an utter lie. But what is happening is that while the media paints this picture, Americans are being assaulted, black and white, on the streets of America by thugs. And it's going unpunished by and large. There's been no arrest thus far in this case, this violent felony assault on Rick Moranis, a 67-year-old man. Notice, folks, they always go after the elderly and the infirm, these cowards. This unprovoked attack on this gentleman wasn't because of his movies. I guarantee it. Wasn't because of his acting performance. Wasn't because of anything he said or did. He was simply walking down the street when a black man assaulted him because he was white. Now, some are going to say, how do you know the motivations? Really? How many other people did this guy slug walking down the street? And what were their ethnicities this day? This was caught on video footage. Not a big fan of the surveillance state, but thank goodness that there are security cameras to catch this violent thug who belongs in prison. Absolutely. Stop this nonsense. White Americans, black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans get along just fine without you politicians stoking false racial hatred, which incentivizes this sort of behavior. And the abrogation of the rule of law by undermining law enforcement officers is what contributes to this. The mayor of New York Where are you at? What comment do you have about one of your New Yorkers being assaulted on the streets? A famous New Yorker. Where are you at, Bill de Blasio? Are you still the mayor of New York? Haven't heard anything out of your yapping mouth in ages. Any more leftist nonsense you want to spew for New Yorkers? Ladies and gentlemen, this is not isolated. This is a daily occurrence in this country, covered up by the mainstream media. It happens in metropolitan areas all over the country. And it happens to white and black Americans. It's despicable, it's vile, it's sickening, and it needs to stop. They are creating a situation in which citizens are going to be forced to defend themselves against this vile conduct. And that is not good for anyone. We have law enforcement to handle situations like this. The New York Police Department, the NYPD, where are they at? What are they up to? I don't know. Do they even have any money left? How many thousands of officers sought early retirement to escape the political nonsense and shenanigans that are happening on the streets of New York? Folks, this is New York City. Manhattan, the Upper West Side, broad daylight, sucker punched by a coward who ironically wore a sweatshirt saying, "I love New York." Well, folks, if you know anything about this violent thug, scumbag, piece of human filth, please feel free to contact the authorities. I've left the image for this video up as the Crimestoppers. It has the information on it. Please report it to New York authorities if you know anything about this. Let's put a stop to this ridiculous, hideous conduct that's taking place in our cities. And the elections are coming next month. If you have a mayor or a governor who is complicit in this nonsense by either sitting on their hands or by encouraging it, vote them out of office. Get rid of them. Send them packing. Folks, Rick Moranis, 67-year-old Hollywood actor, famous comedian, entertainer, wonderful person, sucker punch, violently assaulted in broad daylight in the Upper West Side of New York. Where are people safe? Where are people safe from people like Bill de Blasio and his piss poor governance?